In the United States, approximately 3.3% of adolescents identify as transgender, and over 2.2% are questioning their gender identity. Instead of investigating why the rate of young people identifying as transgender is a staggering 329% higher than that of adults, and why the majority of trans-identifying teens differ from adults who primarily identify as gay or lesbian, the medical community has rapidly promoted the gender-affirming care model. These medical interventions include the use of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and mastectomies in young girls. However, the US Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, has now issued a stark warning. Despite growing pressure to promote irreversible medical interventions for youth in our country, the scientific evidence does not support the widespread use of these interventions, and the risks are significant and cannot be dismissed. Recently, the HHS released a landmark report titled Care for Children and Adolescents with Gender Dysphoria, a scientific review. This report offers a critical, science-based perspective and highlights the serious consequences associated with the use of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries on minors. It stands as one of the most comprehensive analyses from the US government on the treatment of gender dysphoria to date. One of the most significant findings of the report is the alarmingly weak scientific basis supporting medical gender transition for adolescents. After a thorough review of existing research, the HHS concluded the overall quality of the evidence base is low. The report further reveals that the available evidence is unreliable and insufficient to verify that gender-affirming care actually improves the long-term quality of life for children. Furthermore, the report cautions that positive outcomes reported in some studies are often overstated and not reflective of reality. The HHS report explicitly states, in many areas of medicine, treatment protocols are first established based on safety and efficacy data in adults before being applied to other age groups, especially in pediatrics. However, in this case, the opposite has occurred. Clinicians develop gender transition treatment protocols for adolescents to address the disappointing psychological outcomes observed in adults who had undergone gender transition. This indicates a lack of rigorous, long-term data in the pediatric population. Yet it is being used to justify radical medical interventions on children. The HHS's assessment of serious medical risks and unknowns meticulously details the numerous dangers associated with puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries in adolescents. These interventions are not minor or easily reversible. Instead, they carry the potential for permanent, life-altering consequences. A child who undergoes puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones may face irreversible infertility, sexual dysfunction, and compromised bone development. These significant risks are being placed upon vulnerable young people, while the long-term consequences for fertility, cognition, and numerous other aspects of their health remain largely unstudied. The United States' embrace of early medical gender transition for minors stands in stark contrast to the growing caution in Europe. The HHS report highlights that several countries have shifted their approach after re-evaluating the evidence. The United Kingdom has banned the routine use of puberty blockers. Sweden and Finland have also severely restricted access to cross-sex hormones, prioritizing psychotherapy instead. Many countries are now advocating for an approach where psychological therapy is the primary treatment, rather than a rush to medical or surgical interventions. Overall, numerous international experts are retreating from the gender-affirming model and returning to a more cautious approach, starting with talk therapy. In stark contrast, many clinics in the United States continue to rapidly push adolescents toward medical gender transition, often after only cursory mental health evaluations. The report also raises critical ethical questions about the capacity of minors to provide truly informed consent to life-altering interventions. because adolescents are still developing and often subject to significant social pressures. They are unlikely to fully grasp the long-term implications of trading away their reproductive function or sexual capacity at the age of 14 or 15. One physician quoted in the review candidly admitted that discussing reproduction with teenagers is like talking to a brick wall. He stated, "They'll be like, EW babies, gross." This blunt observation underscores the difficulty in obtaining genuine consent from minors, individuals who lack the maturity to make responsible decisions that will impact the rest of their lives. Given these significant unknowns and serious risks, the ethical principle of do no harm should guide the actions of doctors and parents, demanding the utmost caution, pushing vulnerable young people toward permanent, life-altering interventions. Without robust long-term data and genuine informed consent is both reckless and irresponsible. The HS review points to talk therapy and other non-invasive forms of treatment as underutilized yet effective options for children experiencing gender dysphoria. In direct opposition to the immediate affirmation model, talk therapy allows clinicians to safely explore a child's feelings and provide support while addressing underlying psychological issues. The report notes that Finland and Sweden, countries with some of the most scientifically rigorous guidelines, recommend that psychological therapy, not hormones or surgery, should be the standard of care for gender-distressed youth. Many adolescents who identify as transgender are actually grappling with underlying mental health conditions. Addressing these root causes can alleviate gender dysphoria or provide the child with greater clarity. At the very least, talk therapy provides families with crucial time for thoughtful assessment and appropriate care. Tragically, in the United States, this therapeutic approach is often overlooked and discouraged within the prevailing gender-affirming care model. The HHS report urges a paradigm shift toward prioritizing mental health therapy as a safer and less risky first-line approach for children. Of course, Christian parents will rightly have concerns about relying solely on non-Christian therapists who may affirm or encourage gender confusion. Christians will recognize that the conclusions of this report align with biblical wisdom regarding human sexuality and the human body. Scripture teaches that God created humanity male and female, Genesis 1-27, Matthew 19-4, and that each person is fearfully and wonderfully made by Him, Psalm 139-13-14. Our gender is not a random occurrence or a mistake to be altered at will, but an integral part of God's good design. We know that in a fallen world, many individuals experience deep conflict between their internal feelings and their biological sex, and this is a source of genuine pain. But the compassionate response is not to endorse harmful interventions that deny the reality of the physical body. Instead, we are called to speak the truth in love, Ephesians 4:15, affirming the inherent dignity and worth of every individual while gently encouraging them towards God's design for their lives. The HHS report provides a crucial foundation for Christians to approach the issue of transgenderism with both empathy and conviction. Knowing that these medical interventions lack robust scientific backing and carry significant risks, we can confidently ask critical questions in love, guiding young people toward a better path. We can champion approaches that protect the bodies and futures of children, such as prioritizing family-based psychological therapy over rushing to harmful medical interventions. Standing firm on the teachings of Scripture and reliable scientific research, we can reflect the image of Christ, holding both truth and love for the eternal well-being of our children.